Take a moment to look outside your window now and think. Somewhere at this very moment, maybe thousands of miles away, maybe just across the street, sit the places and stories on this list. They're as real as you and me. Where the wind blows and the rain falls, the dead speak. Soft, quiet, but they speak, and they wonder, is anyone listening? I'm so glad you've chosen to find your way back with us. I'm still here with my wolf and my bunnies, and now you're here too. If you're into horror and urban legends, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It would mean the world to me. This is part 2 of our journey across the United States. If you'd like to start from the beginning, then click up here. But if you'd just like to see 5 more unique and terrifying urban legends, let's get started. Number 1. Riverdale Road in Thornton, Colorado. Riverdale Road, a winding 11-mile path between Thornton and Brighton, is at the center of many supposed hauntings and paranormal happenings. Like most of the urban legends on this series, this road could have an entire episode dedicated to it because there are not one, but many different legends associated with it. To begin with, apparently the gates of hell exist on this creepy road. Well, the gate is actually just made out of rusty iron, but the story is about a man who built them and lost his mind when they finished, burning his entire mansion with his family asleep inside. The story says he was never caught or put on trial, but I couldn't find any facts to back this up. Now, witnesses report that a lady in white walks the road by these gates. Assumed to be his wife, she searches the street for her murdered children, or even her husband. She might be out for revenge, but the most she's ever done to visitors is appear in the rearview mirror as they pass by, longing for help that never comes. As you drive down the road, you might get chased by a jogger. Just like any road, accidents happen, and one jogger decided to take the jog along Riverdale Road one day and got hit. They didn't make it, so now the jogger haunts this road. People passing through on foot have heard a loud heartbeat and even footsteps. There's also the spirit of a young boy that dwells along Riverdale Road. While on his way to school, he got hit by a car. Now he paces the street restlessly at night, smearing his bloody handprints on every street sign as he walks by them. By morning, the prints are always gone. If you've made it this far without anything happening, then you're lucky. But if you see a hitchhiker thumbing his way down the road, you probably shouldn't stop. Those that have get the shock of their lives as they stop to let this young man out. What happens when they finally reach his destination? We all know this one. He was gone, of course, nothing to show he was ever there. The thing about Riverdale Road is that it's not just the road itself that's haunted, it's the area of land that it cuts through. The stories go back hundreds of years. Native American tribes from the area told of shapeshifters roaming the land. That wraps up the tale on Riverdale Road. If you know of or have experienced any paranormal events on this road, let me know in the comments. Number 2. Legend of the Faceless People of Monroe, Connecticut. So, for the state of Connecticut, our source map picked the notorious Annabelle doll. Now, I considered covering that, but hey, if you found your way to my channel, you probably already know that story. If not, let me know in the comments, and I'll make a mini episode dedicated to just the Annabelle doll. So, I decided to find an urban legend from the same place that I had never heard of before. This is the story of the Faceless People of Monroe, Connecticut. In the tiny town of Monroe in Fairfield County, Connecticut, there's a desolate old barn in the woods that was boarded up long ago. There is no paved road leading to the barn, and the dirt road that does exist is covered with gnarled tree trunks and roots. Yet, if you were to hike through the woods, you might hear strange voices coming from inside the barn. A cacophony of sounds and voices muffled by the old rotting wood. If you arrive at nightfall, you will see a glimpse of light behind a crack between the boards that cover the windows. If you stare long enough, you might see shapes pass between the light, but the shadows can't be made out. But what lurks within the walls of this 2-story barn? Called by the locals the House of the Faceless People, legend has it that a group of unfortunates live in this old barn, with one caretaker who is never seen leaving or entering it. Presumably the caretaker goes out only at midnight with his charges so that they can at least get some fresh air. The sunlight is not favorable to these individuals who have no face. They have no eyes, nose, or ears. Just a mouth outlined with pale lips and bony hands, grasping around constantly as if trying to find their way in the world. Curiosity seekers who are clever enough to locate the old barn are usually chased away by the caretaker, yet there have been reports in Monroe of the occasional faceless person who decided to take a stroll through the woods and make his way to the main road when the caretaker was not looking. The unfortunate would unintentionally frighten a citizen on the way to the grocery store or bank, darting out in front of a car to have its driver startled, thinking a wild animal was in the way. The caretaker of the faceless people remains apart from the community, most likely to maintain the privacy of himself and his special family. Even the faceless people of this house deserve respect, too, accepted by society or not. While many questions remain about these people, especially where they came from and how they came to be faceless, the barn remains impenetrable to all who pass it. To date, none of the faceless people have ever been caught on camera. Number 3. The Corpse Light in Cape Henlopen, Delaware. It's 1655. You and your mates on the Devonshire men are lost in rough seas off the coast of what will one day become Delaware. Judging by the maps made from the last voyage to these parts, there should be a bay nearby where you can finally head to shore. Suddenly, out of the dark night, you see a light coming from what must be the coast. Maybe it's a fire on the beach from the natives. Maybe it's your countrymen trying to guide the ship safely to shore. You give orders to head towards the light. The men are soaked and tired, but they follow your orders with stoic determination. You're jolted suddenly forward as a crash rings out from the hull. You must have run aground, but the shore is nowhere in sight. Men yell and struggle to save the ship and themselves from a cold, watery death. But before anyone has time to determine the severity of the situation, the ship begins to rapidly sink into the sea. The last thing you see is that damned light, flickering and pulsing on the horizon before you take your final breath as you're resigned to the depths. Legend tells us that 200 men perished that night on Christmas Eve, and the tale of the corpse light of Lake Henlopen was born. Cape Henlopen State Park is said to be the origin of the corpse light. There is no lighthouse at Cape Henlopen, yet people often see lights flashing from the location. The light was allegedly a curse from a local Native American tribe. After British soldiers stormed a wedding ceremony and massacred many guests, the tribe conjured up the light as a means to lure ships to doom. Reports of the ghostly light, as well as the apparition of the Devonshiremen, continue to be seen to this day. Number 4. The grave of Elizabeth Budd Graham in Tallahassee, Florida. Although our source map for Florida recommends the Devil's Chair from Casadega, I've actually done a video on that already, which I'll link up in the corner. So I've decided to replace it with the grave of Elizabeth Budd Graham. Let's get started. Nestled in Tallahassee's oldest public cemetery, the curious grave of Elizabeth Bessie Budd Graham is a unique memorial to a woman who some believe was a kindly white witch. The Old City Cemetery was established in 1829. Its eternal inhabitants represent a cross-section of Tallahassee during the 19th century. Governors, store clerks, veterans of wars, victims of yellow fever, slaves, and planters. In 1889, Elizabeth Budd Graham, a 23-year-old wife and mother, was buried under an elaborate headstone in the August Cemetery. Almost immediately, legends sprang up around the memorial. Elizabeth was born in the witchy month of October. Unlike the rest of the cemetery markers, and contrary to the Christian tradition, the gravestone faces west. Most mysterious of all is Bessie's epitaph, an excerpt from Lenore, Edgar Allan Poe's ode to a dearly departed young love. Ah, broken is the golden bowl, the spirit flown forever. Let the bell toll, a saintly soul floats on the Stygian river. Come, let the burial rite be read, the funeral song be sung, an anthem for the queenliest dead that ever died so young. A dirge for her the doubly dead, in that she died so young. Rumors soon circulated that Elizabeth had bewitched her husband into marrying her. It was said that she was a good witch who cast spells of love and protection. No one has ever been able to find any documentation associating Elizabeth with witchcraft. It is much more likely that her heartbroken family simply wanted to honor a young woman cut down in life much too soon, and who better to do that than Edgar Allan Poe? However, the legend of Tallahassee's very own White Witch persists. To this day, many curious visitors and fellow witches visit the grave to pay homage and leave gifts for the doubly dead Elizabeth. Number 5. The 700 Ghosts of the Kennesaw House, Marietta, Georgia. The South is full of ghosts. Some say the countless bloody battles during the Civil War have caused soldiers from both sides to be trapped in limbo forever. At least that's what the stories say, but even the most hardened skeptic will have a hard time not believing the stories when visiting Marietta's most haunted building, Kennesaw House. Built in 1845, Kennesaw House is one of the oldest buildings in Marietta because it was one of the few buildings not burned down during Sherman's Atlanta campaign. At the time, the building was the Fletcher House Hotel, owned by Dix Fletcher. The hotel was spared during Sherman's campaign because the Fletcher's son-in-law was a Union spy. Used as a hospital and morgue during the Civil War, it's no surprise that Kennesaw House is said to be home to 700 restless spirits. Now home to the Marietta History Museum, many museum visitors report seeing some of these ghosts. There have been several sightings of a Civil War surgeon who seems to enjoy riding the elevator. Children on school field trips often report spotting a woman in an antebellum dress they later identify as Mrs. Fletcher, the wife of Dix Fletcher, who appears in a portrait hanging in the museum. But the most notable supernatural experience happened in the basement. While riding the elevator, museum guests found themselves unexpectedly taken to the basement. When the doors opened, they found a crowded hospital room. Men in Civil War uniforms shouted in pain as weary surgeons removed limbs and tended to bullet wounds. When they returned to the main floor, some visitors asked museum staff about the Civil War reenactment going on downstairs. Baffled, museum staff went to check the situation but found the basement to be totally empty. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you have any ideas for future episodes or interesting urban legends from your hometown, let me know down in the comment section. Since the last video, I've got a bunch of subscribers, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for supporting my creepy obsession. Stay tuned to the very end of the video for a message from Annabelle. My daughter, not the doll. Thanks everyone. Good night.